Yes.
And lent you at a reasonable rate. And this is one of the worrying factors in all of this, that when you look at the total amount of borrowing that she's got to do over the next 5 years, it comes to this extraordinary figure of 1.3 trillion.
Amazing.
And you have to ask yourself the question, how are the markets going to react? Are they going to start to push up our interest rates?
Absolutely. Lee, thank you for joining us and giving us that explanation. Well, I'm going to ask you at home, is Rachel Reeves lying to us? Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. Got to start with you, Kwasi, on this. Redwood and Evans have a history of putting their finger on things that nobody else does. What do you make of that?
So, look, I think that a lot of that is true. The government will say, well, you know, it's based on certain assumptions and all of that. But the fundamental question is, when she says she's cutting the debt, everybody knows that as long as you're borrowing, you're actually increasing the levels of the debt. Now, what she's saying, and bear with me here, is that she's trying to say that the debt's being reduced as a proportion of GDP.
But it's not.
But it's not. That's where...
And the Prime Minister was doing it again today at the dispatch box. And it's just not true,
It's not true. So very simply, the national debt is everything we borrowed for 300 years.
Yes.
And so if you're borrowing year on year, which is what we've been doing, which was what they're doing, you're increasing the stock of the debt. And if you can't grow...
By the way, it happened under 14 years ago.
Oh, it did. I mean, you look at COVID. I remember when I got into office, we were spending £1 trillion. It's only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's suddenly 1.3 trillion.
Yeah.
That's the amount we're spending. I mean, coincidentally, that's So they're borrowing something to the tune of 100 billion a year, roughly, or more.
Well, hang on, it's a lot more.
It's a lot more. The 100 billion is the...
138, I think this year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's just adding to the debt. And if you don't grow fast...
They sort of got away with it. I don't know how. There were one or two of us screaming on the sidelines, but we weren't getting very far. But what the Chancellor is doing here is just plain dishonest.
No.
Does she think we're stupid?
No. No, she doesn't think we're stupid, and she's not being dishonest. We're only looking at one side of it. We're looking at what if, and, you know, as the commentator has just said, you know, he's trying to project 5 years ahead.
Yes.
Well, good luck to anyone who does that. So, you know, a lot of this is if, and then, as you've just said, and if the economy doesn't grow. So there are a lot of ifs in that.
That's right, and that's what the government would say.
But it happens to be true. And, you know, the debt that's built up, you know, it was under the last government, a lot of it not its fault.
Sure.
It didn't start a war in Ukraine. It didn't
create
COVID.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, there's a lot of stuff that built up that was not actually, you know, your government's fault. But nevertheless,
Has Rachel Reeves cut debt since she became Chancellor?
She is planning to. Now,
Come on, let's just get to the heart of this. She is telling us, she's telling us again and again, the Prime Minister's telling us, we are cutting debt, we are cutting borrowing. And the point I'm making is it's not true.
Well, it is true, but because...
How's it true?
Because what she's doing is, and as she always said, there will be borrowing, particularly for investment. You know, one of the great... No, it isn't irrelevant, because what you've just been talking about is paying it back. That's where you started. Well, Can we pay it back? Now, actually, one of the things we have to do is to, you know, the productivity review or report, I forgot what they called it, the OBR just did, was how unproductive we've come. We have got to be doing something.
They're all causal factors. I totally agree with you. Our productivity... But I want to just ask this one more time, if I can. Has Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, since they've been in government, have they cut debt?
They haven't. They haven't.
The debt as a proportion of GDP, I thought, was.
No, it's going up.
It's up.
So look, Nigel...
Look, we all know there are economic problems. I'm not denying that.
No, so boiling it down very simply, when she says she's cutting debt, that is false.
Yes.
Because they're borrowing money. OK? If you're borrowing, you're not reducing your debt. Forget about that stuff. If you're borrowing money, you're increasing the stock of debt. Now, the challenge she has is to reduce it as a proportion of the national wealth, as a proportion of GDP. Now, if we don't get growth, the debt to GDP will go up.
Of course.
And you say, of course, but she's not said that.
Well,
she said the opposite. She said she's reducing debt, which is false.
We are working to get that growth that will bring it down.
Then why doesn't she say that? But she said she's cut it. No, she said she's cut debt. That's English. That's plain English. You're cutting debt.
The money we are paying back now is stuff mostly we inherited.
I know all of that, but look, you're trying to dress things up. What you should do is just be very frank to viewers and say, if you increase borrowing, you're increasing debt. Now, you can say, I'm trying to reduce it, I'm trying to grow the economy.
But Kwasi, how is it? And OK, you know, what Evans and Redwood have come up with is more technical about debt rollover.
Yeah, but there are lots of ifs. I agree with what...
And there are lots of ifs.
There are lots of assumptions there.
But fine. But just, what you know I can't understand? I listened to the Chancellor last week. I listened to the Prime Minister today. I knew what they were saying was wholly untrue.
It's not untrue.
And yet, Diane, it is wholly untrue. And what surprises me? The lack of media commentary around it.
Well, and also the lack of candor. We know that she's been less than candid over the last few months.
You know, the OBR, we all talk about the OBR and she's misleading. And the OBR says that Chancellor did not mislead.
I closed it down. What use of the OBR?
Well, that's a different matter, but the number of times that people are using that when they want to accuse her
I don't want to
of
rehearse
misleading.
last week's debate, but they said that they'd given her a figure on the 31st of October, and in fact it was a surplus. She did a press conference on the 4th of November, which last time I checked is after the 31st of October, in which she implied that she was going to have a 30 billion deficit, and she needed to raise taxes to fill the black hole. That was all bogus. It was all nonsense. And they didn't need to point to the FT. What the fact is that she said she used the OBR figures to justify a tax rise. If she said, look, I'm a socialist, and I think I should tax rich people to pay for the more vulnerable, that would have been fair. That would have been candid.
She was
but she didn't do that. She raised the taxes on the back of what they said, and that was wrong.
That row will go on, but I thought it was very interesting that, and you know, opinion polls vary hugely, and we all get that. But I mean, the most recent one showing only 10% of the country have any confidence in her as Chancellor. She can't last, can she?
Well, wait a minute. Two different things there. Yes, she will last. Yes, I do. I genuinely do.
From my experience,
Yeah,
I'll let you know. Sorry.
What's very interesting, and you must be meeting business people like I am day by day, actually, they're pretty content. We are not hearing the whinges from them. They feel they do have confidence. They know what's happening. So that will be really...
What businesses
who are you talking to?
Oh, various people.
I speak to people they literally have got staff who are leaving to Dubai.
Yeah, and
they've had to set up offices in Dubai who are perfectly happy.
They
well, I tell you what.
Well, come round and meet the same ones.
Well, I bet you're...
who are perfectly happy.
Well, I tell you what.
Well, come round and meet the same ones.
Well, I bet you're meeting big businesses.
Yes.
And there are 8,000 big businesses in Britain. I'm a bit more worried about the 5.6 million small ones. Anyway, we will draw stumps on that and move on to my favourite subject, Brexit. It would appear most of the political class in Westminster now want to undo it, including the Prime Minister.